Welcome to High Point University's Leadership and Life Skills series. Join me today as we explore the life and work of Dr. Julie Freischlag. She is the first ever female Chief Executive Officer of Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center and the Dean of Wake Forest School of Medicine. Quite a leader in the triad and beyond. You'll enjoy this interview.
High Point University presents A Conversation with Dr. Julie Freischlag and Nido Cobain is a production of UNC TV in association with High Point University.
Hello, I'm Nido Cobain, president of High Point University, and I want to welcome you to this very, very exciting show. This is a program that is both substantive and informative. You're going to enjoy this conversation with this extraordinary professional. Her name is Dr. Julie Freischlag. She is the CEO of Wake Forest Baptist Health, and she is the Dean of the Medical School at Wake Forest University. She's a great addition to the triad. She's a leader among leaders, and we're so delighted to have her on the campus of High Point University. Julie, welcome to High Point University. We're delighted to have you here.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
So, your grandfather, who was a coal miner, said to you, they will always tell you you can't do it, but don't listen to them. And clearly, you did not listen.
That's true. I did not. He told me that when I had just skipped first grade. I have a brother a year ahead of me. I was in a small town in Illinois. I had read all the books. I showed up in first grade, and I talk a lot, so I was a discipline problem. So they pushed me into second grade, and that's when he told me that. And I must admit, I don't think I remembered it for a long time, but then it came back to my mind because he died then a year later after he told me that, and probably ruptured an aneurysm. I'm a vascular surgeon, and my mother had one, so it turned out he probably had a disease I treat.
Wow. Wow. What is it? So you talk a lot about resilience. One must be resilient. What does that mean, one must be resilient?
Well, I think as I've gone through my life, even though my grandfather said don't listen to them, there's many people that will tell you, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, maybe it's too risky. Do you really want to upend your life and take that risk? And I think part of that is that you say, I can do that, and also realize it may not turn out just the way you want, but it may actually turn out the better way that you don't even know. So I think I've always benefited from taking risks and doing new things. So that's the resilience.
Yeah, you know, we tell students at High Point University that there's no such thing as unrealistic dreams. There are only unrealistic timelines. It doesn't mean that magically it's going to happen. It means you have to pay your dues. But we'll talk about the art of the possible. That's really what you're talking about, that in spite of challenges and obstacles, all of us can still achieve and do and become. And you have become a leader among leaders. I mean, Julie, I'm trying to get these numbers in my head. U.S. News and World Report just put Wake Forest Baptist Health #2 in the state of North Carolina, only after Duke, right? Yeah. You have 13,500 employees, roughly 2,000 MDs. You operate in I don't know how many medical areas beyond the primary Baptist location in Winston. How many, by the way?
Well, we have 3 other hospitals that we actually own, and within 2 weeks, we're going to be operating High Point Hospital, which we're really excited about. 140 clinics we have, 40 clinics from High Point, so 180 clinics. We'll have 2 cancer centers, one at High Point. We're ranked #1 in the state for cancer center this year as well, and a huge cardiovascular presence both here in High Point and in Winston-Salem.
And your budget is $2 billion?
Yeah, it's probably bigger than that now. It's probably close to 4 with the purchase of High Point.
Really?
So we're big.
So you underpaid for High Point then.
I know. Don't tell them.
Okay.
It's almost closed.
Yeah. So I'm interested in your take on this. 13,500 employees in various locations. You are the CEO on the one hand, you are the dean of a medical school on the other hand. While these two are connected, they're not necessarily, while they're related, they're not necessarily connected. And what do you think in the morning when you get up? I have to get this message across. I have to work on the culture in this way. I have these kinds of challenges. Tell us about how you go about communicating with these family of employees all of the values and principles that you want to see performed and displayed every day.
That's a great question, because when I first came, I was just the CEO, and then as changes occurred, I took on the dean because I had been a dean at another institution. We really think we're a learning healthcare system, which means that every day, whether you're a nurse on the front line, or if you're someone helping clean the grounds, or you're a medical student, or you're a professor, we're always learning, similar to you would do at High Point University. Everyone's learning in their role. And as we continue to learn to take better care of patients, to take care of ourselves, because as you know, there's been lots about the unhealthy nature of healthcare employees too, that the burnout, and it's tough taking care of sick people, that as we go forward, we really want to take better care of patients. We want to learn how to do that. So we communicate when I showed up. It's very similar to how you do things. You walk around, people see me. I was at all our hospitals. I showed up, actually one holiday party, they invited me and I showed up in Lexington and they go, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, you invited me. I'm here, to do it." So getting to know you. And then we do a monthly video where I actually talk to one of my employees or talk at one of our places so they can see me. Short scripts, little 3-minute thing. I did do a 1-hour speech, and nobody really watches much of that. They watch about 5 minutes. We can tell how much you watch. And then through the communication, through the videos, through our team, and then also presence, making sure I do town halls and go out to each one of our places.
I saw somewhere where you're still actually seeing patients.
Yes, I do. I'm a vascular surgeon, but I'm a specialist in a syndrome called thoracic outlet syndrome, which is compression in your arms of either the artery, the vein, or the nerve. And not too many people do that procedure. So just yesterday, I operated on a 21-year-old patient from Israel that came over for me to operate on her, because there's no one in Israel to do that procedure. I did a person from Austria a couple months ago, and I even did someone from High Point that needed the operation. So I do operate and see these special patients that have this disease and actually teach it. So I'm able to teach the residents and fellows. Today I gave a talk to the vascular residents on thoracic outlet syndrome. I still publish on it, write on it to do it. And it also makes me understand how the hospital works if I'm in the hospital.
And you've published more than 250 manuscripts and book chapters. You were past president of the Society of Vascular Surgery. Quite an honor. You're involved in research with veterans. In fact, you are being connected to, you've been a veteran or VA surgeon for some 30 plus years.
Yes.
What got you into that work?
Well, one thing that our veterans do get vascular disease, and so you see a group of patients that are really needy for management of vascular disease. And back when I started working at the VA hospital as a resident in Los Angeles and then as faculty in San Diego, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, and Baltimore, what's nice about working at the Veterans Administration, it's pretty fair to women. Everybody gets paid the same, you get the same benefits. The patients are really glad to see you. I must admit I was the first woman on faculty at a couple places I worked, but I found taking care of the veterans so rewarding. And they also get vascular disease, really related to smoking, as well as not probably adhering to good diet and good exercise. We also do a lot of research. There's money in the Veterans Administration to look at the procedures we do. We did a big study on aneurysms, which is sort of what my grandfather had.
They say we are what we eat, what we read, what we surround ourselves with. I choose to be extraordinary, and I get my start every day with daily motivation.
In our global economy where 1 million people can do what you can do, you have to compete with your differences. That's something extra that you possess. That something extra is your differential advantage, your DA. Are you passionate? That answer must be a resounding yes. Knowing and using and understanding your differential advantage will help you on your quest for excellence.
Sign up today to receive Daily Motivation, a short lesson each Monday with your video life coach, Nido Cobain, and inspirational quotes the rest of the week. It's relevant, quick, and free. Choose to be extraordinary.
On this campus, we are focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. There's a growth mindset in our institutional DNA.
Hi, I'm Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and I'm proud to be High Point University's Innovator in Residence.
Hi, I'm Byron Pitts, High Point University's Journalist in Residence. Welcome to HPU.
I'm Mark Randolph, and I'm proud to be the Entrepreneur in Residence at the premier life skills university, High Point University.
So you were the first woman to lead the Department of Surgery at Johns Hopkins University, a leading institution of higher learning, to say the least. How did that happen? And let me, before you answer me, just say this. I watched the video when you left Johns Hopkins to go back to UC Davis. I'm not sure I've ever seen so many people speak so authentically about your leadership and speak so admiringly about your accomplishments and speak so thoughtfully about your impact in their lives. How did you get to Johns Hopkins? What were some of the issues that you met with or resistance? Where did you apply your resilience? Educate us.
Yeah, so when I began to be a vascular surgeon, you just want to be the best you can be, right? You start off saying, I'm going to be a really good vascular surgeon. And I was only the 6th woman in the country to ever get her certificate to be a vascular surgeon. So I was used to being maybe the only woman in the room, maybe the only minority in any way in the room back when I trained in the 80s. I became the leader of vascular surgery at UCLA where I trained. So I went back and actually led the people that trained you, and that's all an art form of sorts, you know, because all of a sudden you're in charge and they're not, you know, so it taught me a lot of skills. I did have mentors that say you should lead things because I really enjoy watching others do things. I teach them to do operations. I want them to lead. I really like them doing it better than me. That's the most fun thing to see is those students of yours or residents going off to do incredible things. So George Sheldon, who was chair of surgery at University of North Carolina, knew me and said, you should run a department of surgery. So I actually looked at UNC and they didn't choose me. I looked at University of Colorado and they didn't choose me. And I looked at University of Michigan and that group, they said, we can't choose a woman surgeon to lead us. We don't have other women chairs here. And I was only the 4th woman chair in the country when I got the job at Hopkins.
This is where resilience comes in.
You just keep looking.
How did you feel? Run us through the experience of when they didn't choose you.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't like it at all. Because I would like you to choose me all the time, right? And then I get to decide, do I choose you? One was interesting, the one in Colorado, he gave me the job and then he sort of took it back. And so I made him talk to me a few months later saying, what was that? And as it turned out, he didn't think he had the resources and he had some other things going on. And the one at Michigan where he said he couldn't hire me, he actually sent Hopkins a letter saying I should have. So you really need to find a brave person that's going to go the journey with you. And the person that chose me at Hopkins is a man, Ed Miller. He's retired now. He's an anesthesiologist. He had worked at Cornell and Virginia, came to Hopkins to run anesthesia and became the dean and CEO. He knew surgery needed to change because we needed to attract more people that are underrepresented in medicine to surgery, not only women, but people from different ethnic backgrounds. And he knew it was me, that I had that tenacity to do it. He also was 6'7", so following him around was great because I had when I trained, a lot of my trainees have been men, and the great big tall ones, you walk right with them, and they're with you, you know, to make it happen. And he's the one that saw the vision and believed in me as we did the cultural change there, that we could change surgery, that we could pay attention to all aspects of the surgeon, and that we could do it in a way that you could have a joyful life as you are a surgeon, which is tough, but also make sure you enjoy the other parts of your life. So it was Ed Miller. It's always a mentor, right? And someone that's going to give you a chance. And also someone that can tell you, you just did that wrong. And he met with me and would tell me, you know what, I know you think this is going on well. It's not being perceived well. You need to change this. I remember one specifically, I had to sort of leave his office because he sort of yelled at me one time, and he knows that he did this. And he's a big guy, even sitting, he was taller than me. And I left the office. For those of you that have kids, if you remember that Mulan movie where she runs off the roof and has to get off the roof, because it was going to explode. I felt I have to get out of here. So a week later, I came back and I said, you know, I'm going to listen, but don't yell at me. It reminds me of my dad. I don't want you to yell at me. And he really made that happen. He had my back.
So we all need heroes, models, and mentors. We tell our students at High Point University that who you spend time with is who you become. What you choose is what you get. How you change is how you succeed. You make it sound so easy that you have accomplished so much in your life, but clearly you've had to cross a few chasms, and you've told us about a couple of them where you were not chosen. But I'm interested in Johns Hopkins. I've been there many times. I've spoken there to the medical faculty there a couple of times. It is not an easy place to be or to try to be the boss. So did you have resistance? How did you deal with it? What was the biggest problem that you faced? How did you solve it?
Correct. Well, when you look at institutions like Johns Hopkins, especially, they've been ranked one of the top hospitals for a long period of time. They also are probably the #1 surgical training. That's where surgery training started at Hopkins with William Stewart Halstead. He was the first surgeon to really start teaching and training residents. It really is where surgery training started. And being only the 6th chair ever there, so I was the first woman, but only the 6th chair, that there's all these traditions. Traditions are fabulous unless they trip you up or make you stuck. And part of this was saying what we had and who we've been is great, but we've got to go forward. So making sure you always respect where you've come from, honor those that have been there, but realize we've got to move and change because these are times that are moving. Now, I did have some help. When I first got there, a couple things changed in how we teach and train residents. One, we had an hour restriction. So when I trained, there were no hour restriction. You came in, I was in-house every other night. I worked 110 to 120 hours. I sometimes didn't get home for days. They really thought that was how to build resilience. Maybe it did, but I know I was really tired. And also you weren't real pleasant. When you lose sleep and you're up all night, we weren't the nicest people. We did all sorts of unusual things, which I won't share, but we did. It was a really rough and tumble time, and many people quit, and many people had lots of issues, not only with quitting, but their health and abusing alcohol, and we even had suicides when we looked at the way we trained. So when I got to Hopkins, they had the 80-hour work week. And a lot of them thought it was my idea, that it wasn't a national thing. So we actually got put on probation for the Department of Medicine. So we had to adhere to the 80 hours. So all of a sudden, we were paying attention to how long our residents were in the hospital. And all of a sudden, their personalities and the way they behaved was better because they got a day off a week. They were able to still work in 80 hours, which is still a lot, but they got home. The other thing we started doing was really these timeouts in the operating room. So when you do an operation, you have this whole team, similar to what many of you do in your work. We have a team of anesthesia, nursing, and surgery, and you get together and do this operation. And the one that probably knows the most is the surgeon. But especially now, for those of you that have surgery, you don't get to sit in the hospital for a few days to get to know us, right? You have to show up like 1 minute before your heart surgery or 2 minutes before your hip surgery, and off you go. And frequently, the residents and other people don't know you as well as me. So now we have this thing where we start your surgery, it's called a timeout, where we use a checklist to make sure it's you and we got the right procedure, we know all about you, because there are wrong site surgeries that occur too, and that everyone knows who you are and what operation you're going to do. And that was a big change. We actually closed the operating room for 2 half days and taught people how to do this, because this is similar to pilots. So we brought in some aviation specialists that taught us to do that checklist before they take your plane off to make sure that everything's going to do well. And also at the end, did it go well? So those two things were big culture events occurring that I took advantage of, that we decided we were going to do it better than anyone else. We weren't going to ignore the hours, which some people did, and we weren't going to pretend we were doing the timeouts, because I said, what if it was you? Would you want me not there, not talking to you? Would you want me there at the beginning to make sure you got a good operation? Of course, the answer is you want me there. So do what you want us to do. So those two things helped us go forward. I also got to hire quite a few people. I hired over 100 surgeons over the 11 years I was there. So most of them worked for me. And we also then moved into new hospitals. We enlarged ourselves and took over Suburban and Sibley Hospital in DC. And then also, I really put myself out there saying we do want a different culture of surgery. We want it so everyone wants to become a surgeon and that everybody thinks they can.
Why did you leave Johns Hopkins?
Well, I'd been there 11 years, and we did big strategic planning at 10 years with a new dean. And I did put my name in for being dean there, but they chose someone else, and that was fine, and he wanted me to stay doing surgery. But during that presentation to the new dean, my 11 departments or divisions presented their work and their plan, and they all knew how to do it. So I thought, what am I learning here? Because I choose jobs, so what am I learning? What impact do I have? And who's my boss? And I really miss Dr. Miller. He was my person. I really had learned how to run a department of surgery, and my impact was there. So I felt it was time to go on and really look at healthcare, look at access, think about students and how the whole system works. And it was time to do something else. And I think I knew I had at least one, maybe two more tricks in my bag, and they were good. They all knew how to do this, and I missed them terribly. But now about 8 of them have gone off to run departments of surgery, so that's been great. And they've gone on to do the right thing. So for me, it was all about a new experience.
Yes. And you went to UC Davis.
I went to UC Davis for 3 years.
And you were the?
Vice Chancellor and Dean. And I got to work with the chancellor, so I got to think about undergrad education. And I must admit, I hadn't thought about that much since I was one, because I was very focused on medical students and residents. So learning from Linda Katehi all about a big public university. And then I also ran the medical school and oversaw the CEO at the hospital.
So you have been a role model to women in a very special place, to everyone, but to women specifically. And I have watched and read some of your citations about this particular matter, that the gentleman who said to you, "We can't hire you because you're a woman, we don't have women directors of this program or heads of these departments." What is it that you would say to women today? We have at High Point, 56, 57% of our incoming freshmen who are women. If you were talking to them in this theater, you would say what 3 things they must believe in this ever-changing world, even with all the advancements and cultural adjustments and the levels of awareness that all of us have gained. What would you be saying to them?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to believe in yourself, because I think no matter where you are or what you're doing, you never know when you may have an adverse conversation, or you are in a process of listening to something that isn't good, or that you need to have that wherewithal to be able to believe in yourself and speak out. I actually just wrote an article this year for JAMA on Me Too, and some of the most important people who are going to help us so that we don't mistreat each other is maybe not the person being mistreated, but it's the person watching that. And if you are around doing things, if you see something not going well, that you believe enough in yourself that you can walk over. And my favorite line is, I know you didn't mean to say something rude and horrible to that person, and then smile. But you may want to rethink how you phrase that, you know. Another friend of mine has them say, you want to repeat what you just said? And many times they don't. So believe in yourself, even on those days where you're not sure. Believe in yourself and figure out where that strength comes from, whether it's your mom. I think mine was. She's been dead now for about 12 years. She had an aneurysm too and had repair. She was one of those quiet leaders that said, go get educated. So those of you that are here. Then surround yourself with good people. You know, I think you really can't discount the meeting of good friends, good mentors, and all sorts of people that can really make your life this beautiful mosaic of people you know. So when you have a problem, you go, oh, I need to call Nito on that. He knows about that. Or I would call Julie on that one because she's had that experience. So really populate your life with all sorts of people that maybe aren't even like you, but you can learn from where they are to do it. And then don't be so hard on yourself. You know, we all are impatient. We want to get somewhere fast. We think we only have one chance. I mean, I had to look at many chairs of surgery jobs, many dean's jobs to make that happen. And so that you know that I didn't get my first choice and that it hasn't always been easy, but that you really need to not be hard on yourself, because that thing you just didn't get, which is I didn't get Dean at Hopkins and I went off to Davis, and here allowed me to come here and have this great experience. So when a door closes, as a surgeon, I was sort of told, why don't you just beat down the door? You know, and that's not a good idea. And I wouldn't go through a window because you can hurt yourself. You really want to go through another door, because another door can take you into this vast array of endless opportunities.
So to any of us males who have the responsibility of guiding and mentoring and leading and setting examples for females, what are the 3 things you would say to them?
Yes. Make no assumptions about what I want to do or what I can do and how much time I have. Because in my field, many people I've heard say, well, you know, she's got to be really busy. She's got 3 kids, her husband works. I'm sure she doesn't have time to do that. So never make that assumption that we don't want it, or we don't think we can handle it, or that you would overtax us. So I think make no assumptions about whether or not we're available to do that. Have a lot of appreciative inquiry, where when you're sitting there and something's being discussed and looking and saying, so what do you think about that? Or does that ring true to you? Or has that been your experience? Because even everybody at the table is going to have an experience, and some people don't speak up as much as others. And then be able to say you made a mistake. And I've done that too. A story I'll tell you, at Hopkins, there's a floor where all the surgeons have their offices, and there's pictures of every surgeon ever trained. And so for about 60 years, it's all white guys, and then it sort of starts getting some women and then some people with different ethnic backgrounds. And you see the change as you go on. And everybody wants an office in that main hallway, because that's the Hopkins hallway, right, to do it. And office space is always hard. Space is the last frontier, right? You're trying to find people's offices. So we were just...
We have no problem with that.
You just build another building, Some of us are stuck with one. And so we were just putting people where we could, and we were trying to group them according to specialty. And it turned out that my breast surgeons mainly were women, and so we put them not in the main hallway. We put them in the back hallway. And I showed up at a women's event. I was a little late, and I heard one of my women surgeons who got stuck there said, yeah, they won't even put us in the real hallway. She put us in the back hallway. And I was like, I didn't even recognize I did that. I was just trying to find an office. So I looked at Lisa and I said, I apologize. I said, it didn't even dawn on me that's how it appeared. I just was trying to do the best we could. And so I said, okay, since you've said something, a few of you have got to go in that main hallway. And those offices are smaller, and the air conditioning and heat doesn't work so well, but you'll be right in that hallway. But you would think I would pay attention to that, but it missed us. It missed us totally. but then we fixed it. So being able to say, oh, what a mistake. I can fix this to do it and change it. I think those things would make it also make you look real, that you didn't do it out of spite. You were just trying to do the right thing.
But really, having been born in Illinois and having certain aspirations, your original aspiration was to become a teacher. Then your second aspiration was to become a pediatrician. And then all of a sudden you're internationally recognized vascular surgeon. Lead us onto this journey.
Well, my mom was a teacher, and I must admit, I've learned more and more how smart she was. You know, my mom was quiet. She got her teaching certificate with 2 years of college back then and taught elementary school. And then she also was a substitute teacher for disabled children and special needs kids, because no one else would go teach those kids ad hoc. My younger brother now is a special needs teacher, which is sort of interesting. So she's the one that said, get an education, because then you can do anything you want. And I was the only one of my women cousins that went to college. Everyone else, maybe a year, but no one got a degree. So I went off to be a teacher, but they closed education. It was the late 70s, thinking there were going to be too many teachers. I don't know who did that study, but they thought there'd be too many teachers. And I love science. I wanted to be a biology high school teacher. So I sort of went into medicine, because to be a nurse, you had to leave after your junior year at University of Illinois and go to Chicago. And I was in a sorority having way too much fun, and so I did not want to leave. So I sort of went into medical school by default and got interviewed. I got interviewed up at Rush Medical College by a woman histologist, and this is why, you know, always have a book you just read, right? So they always ask, what was the last book you read? So it turned out it was Rabbit Run, which is a book all about hierarchy of rabbits, right? And she had just read it. This is when life becomes lucky, right? And she had just read it. She's a histologist, so she loves biology. So we talked about Rabbit Run for an hour. And I got in early decision the next day, all about Rabbit Run, you know, so here you are, you're in, you know. And then no one spoke to me much, because I was in December and no one else was into med school till March. And so I was pretty lonely for a few months, but I was in, so that's all that counted. And then I did surgery first as my rotation to get it over with, because I knew I'd hate it. And I walked in, and it was me. My dad did word working. My mom was a craft person. I do a lot of crafts too. I love working with my hands, and I could do it. And no one had ever told me not to do it. It's just I never saw it as an option. And again, another good mentor, Steve Economo, who was chair of surgery, whose daughter also became a surgeon with me out at UCLA, head and neck surgeon. He said, you can do this. And he wrote like a 5-page letter saying you should hire her. And off we went. So again, taking a little risk, paying attention to what you like, passion, so that you do it. My mother said, so why do you want to be a surgeon? She goes, what's that about? But deep inside, I think she knew I was headed off to do something that was a little bigger than just being a pediatrician in my hometown.
I want to shift a little bit and talk about healthcare. It confuses me. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand how it's priced. I don't understand why it's so expensive. Will the cost of healthcare ever come down? And if so, how might that happen?
All good questions. So when I went into medicine, you know, it was not about the business. And I remember when I trained at UCLA, length of stay in hospital on average in the 80s was 21 days. Where you came in, we got to know you, we thought a little bit, we did a scan, the CT scanner was just invented, we thought a little bit, we did operations we didn't know whether we're going to work or not, there were no stats, you couldn't go online to see what kind of doctor I was, you couldn't do any of that. It really was the beginning of big time intervention. So cardiac surgery, robots, intervention. So the 80s and 90s is what if we could type thing. It also, people lived. You know, what we used to do is you would do these interventions, but vascular patients would live 4 or 5 years. and then you would die of heart disease, of other things. Now, vascular patients live 15, 20 years. So they're looking at us. My dad was 89 when he died with an amputation, and you wouldn't see that. Normally, you would be 69. So patients, we've been successful in having people live long times with illness. We can do big time interventions that are expensive and long. And then we've required all of you to participate, which means you come in early, you lengthen the stay, deductibles, all of that, because healthcare has gotten so expensive because we have amazing things to do. Part of the problem is we haven't been able to get you, the patient, to participate in your healthcare. Because if you think about all these amazing interventions, we don't have enough space or money to do them on all of you. Because if all of you are sick, I can't do it. You know, I can't give a kidney transplant to everybody. I can't do interventions on everybody. I need a bunch of healthy people. And it's just been the last 10 years that we've realized that you actually can impact on your health care. If you go back to when Clinton gave one of his inaugural addresses, you don't have to be Democrat or Republican, but he said one sentence in there that we need you to participate in your health care. And that was the first time someone said that you got to help me here. You can't smoke. Now smoking's down 20% in North Carolina, but 13% of people smoke in the country now compared to almost 50% back in the 80s. So that's a good thing. We all know we should exercise, right? Exercise is the new medication for old people. You got to keep moving, right? You got to exercise. And we learned just this week from a study Jeff Williamson did, if you control your blood pressure at 120, there's a really good chance you won't get Alzheimer's. And that's going to make us all watch our blood pressure, because the worst thing is getting Alzheimer's and being here, but you're not here. So now we have all these things we can do that are real expensive. We've got a lot of people that aren't as healthy as we want. And we have figured out, too, that the number one reason you can't participate in your health care is because you're poor. We used to think it was your genetics. So, you know, my family has aneurysms. I've ultrasounded my aorta. I look good. I don't smoke, and that's the main risk factor for that. But we have found that if you're poor, if you live in a zip code that is poor, you will die 10 years earlier. Period. No matter who your family is, no matter what it is. And it's mainly because you don't have a job, you don't have health insurance, you probably don't eat as well, you may have food scarcity, you may smoke more, you may have dependence on drugs and alcohol, and you have despair, you know, because you're poor. And we have that all through North Carolina. We have that in Winston-Salem. The stats just came out last week. We are one of the 10 most unhealthy states in the nation. And part of that is we have poor parts of North Carolina. We have people that still smoke, and we do not have Medicaid expansion in our state. So we have lots of uninsured patients that really don't come to us till it's too late. The other thing that has happened, in order to pay for all the uninsured and people that don't have insurance, we've always done this. Back in the 80s, 1 out of 3 people were uninsured in the state of California, mainly because you could choose not to have health insurance, and they mainly were young people. So when I operated on somebody without insurance, we made enough on everybody else that I could pay for everybody. Now, not so much. Because it's so expensive, I don't have margins at my hospital. I have a very thin one this year that can pay for those that can't.
And you lost
$20
million.
We did. We did $200 million of uninsured care at Wake Forest Baptist this year. And we also didn't get $90 million of deductibles because they're so big, right? So you have this huge deductible, you can't pay your deductible. So we had $300 million we were not paid for things that we did. So what can we do about that? One, you know, I really think we need Medicaid expansion in this state. And the problem with Medicaid expansion is if you don't do it, those patients still come anyway. They're still in the emergency room. It's not like a country club where you could say you don't belong. I mean, they come and you are paying for them. Those that are paying insurance have to pay the money to help take care of those that can't.
So Julie, why did the state of North Carolina not do the federal Medicaid
Yeah,
program?
well, I wasn't here when they made that decision, but we're getting closer. We are going to have Medicaid sort of Medicaid, a little bit of Medicaid, managed Medicaid coming to the state. And part of it, people really thought it was going to increase costs totally. And part of it was, would people even move into our state to do it? Now, Virginia just expanded Medicaid, so that's good to do it. Because we also had people from other states that come to us that are uninsured as well. So I think we will see a difference. When we expanded Medi-Cal in California, we did see lots of people come to doctors that had never been, and they were sick. We admitted 40% of them. And now we can manage their blood pressure, we can manage their diabetes, and we have seen in a subset of patients we've managed who are uninsured, if we do that, they don't come to the emergency room and they don't come in hospital, and so it's much cheaper. So we really want an opportunity to manage health. And people without insurance, it's hard to do. So, and we also want to try to get those deductibles down. So if we do get other forms of payment from the federal government, then hopefully some of the deductibles will come down. And we also need people with insurance to stay healthy. We want you to not be in hospital or need major intervention. So when you do need it, everybody gets the same, that everybody gets an opportunity to be treated. Because in many countries, if you're poor, you get a little health insurance, but you don't get big-time health insurance. If you have resources, you can go get big interventions. And so we don't want that. We would like everyone to get what you need and what you deserve for your health care. So we do need lots more people. Now, there's differences all across the country about how much people pay, even on Medicare and Medi-Cal, what the deductibles are. It really started off as, independent practices. Physicians really like being independent and they wanted to do it their own way. That's sort of how we're wired. But as we've gone forward now with hospitals helping to control that and really looking at protocols and things that you need to do, we're much more, we have much less variation in what you would get and what I would get as far as intervention. But the expense comes because we love stuff, right? So you'd like an MRI of your knee because it hurts. You'd like to know, right? You'd like a CT scan of this because you want to know. And we don't like to wait. If you're in Canada and you have a hernia you want fixed, you might wait 2 years to get it fixed. And that's just their National Health Service. Now, I'm not sure you should wait 2 years, but we don't like waiting 2 minutes, right? I mean, you're in a pharmacy line, and if it's more than 5 minutes, you're mad, right? It happened to my husband yesterday. He goes, I was in the line, and my medication wasn't ready. Well, it's not one he needs today, but he thought that, but I was like, but, that's us, right? We want it now, and we want it immediate. And we also,
if you're at High Point University and waiting to get your gift, it's about an hour, 10 minute wait for this. Yesterday.
But part of it is that. And so I think what can we do? Be as healthy as you can. So whoever you are, go be healthy. Walk, exercise, don't smoke, eat the right stuff, and train your kids to do the same, and go to the dentist. We also have found that bad dentistry is bad for atherosclerosis. It can cause premature births. Figure out a way to get access to care. There are many ways we can help people even that are uninsured, to have some policy and program that we can help with, especially primary care and population health, to do it. And then really help us with your politicians, no matter what flavor they are, that we really need to get some sort of services for those that are uninsured so that we all can benefit from that, because otherwise we will continue to pay for everyone that's here, because I can't say no to anyone that comes to me, and you wouldn't want me to. So we have to afford all of that.
So I'm going to make just a couple of statements, and I don't presume they're right or wrong. I just want your take on them. Consolidation of medical providers, hospitals, et al., create a smaller number of providers, hence takes competition out of the field, hence could create higher costs for medicine. Second, the corollary to that is that those who can afford it can therefore access concierge services, and which means faster, better, quicker, maybe even the doctor would come to your house. That, correct me on these two statements if I'm wrong, or clarify for us.
Well, there's no proof that consolidation has dropped costs. If anything, the studies have shown exactly that. If you put big groups together, the cost tends to go up just because it's a bigger corporation. That being said, though, is if you look what we're doing at Wake Forest Baptist, we actually have hospitals like Davie, where if you need your knee or hip done, it's an orthopedic hospital, it's streamlined, it costs less. The hospital's really focused on you to do that. So we really are trying to keep less sick patients in smaller hospitals, very sick people at our hospital, which does have bigger overhead, so that if you have something small, we want to keep you at Lexington, High Point, Davie, Wilkes, and you stay there. We also are using telemedicine, where we will talk to your doctor if you're in a hospital somewhere in the state. We have about 18 sites for stroke, infectious disease, so we can talk to them so you don't have to be transferred. Again, decreasing costs, decreasing that. I think that's the way to do it, and most of it is now outpatient, where we do a lot of things that rely on you getting to and from. You have friends and family, and it's really hard. But if we can get most of it outpatient, we can. But you're absolutely right, consolidation has never shown to be cost effective. Do I think it would be great to have one payer so I don't have to figure out who pays this and what and that? I'd love that. I would love one payer because I wouldn't have to have so many administrators, but I think we're way far away from that. Part of it just would make everybody have to do it the same way, and we're not that way.
So, Julie, whose fault is it that we're where we are? Is it government?
Yeah.
Is it health professionals? Is it hospitals? Who got us here?
Yeah, I think it's complicated. I'm a doctor, so I will do the right thing all the time, no matter what for you. I never was really trained in finance. Finance wasn't part of what we looked at because we could afford it.
You married a finance
I married
guy.
a finance. My son's a finance person. I hang with a lot of people with finance, but I think part of it is the cost of care went up. We want it all. We want it now. And I think what we need to do is to get to a place where we actually manage our health versus our disease. So instead, we were focused on disease. I can fix your heart. I can take out your brain tumor. I can do all of that. Versus how am I going to get you so you're healthy as you can be? And we do have lots of payers, right? We have federal parts of Medicaid, we have state parts of Medicaid, we have HMOs. We've tried many ways to maintain this, but I think now we know that it really has to be focused on health. So I don't think everybody went out to do it. The concierge services have come out because people just don't like to wait, right? And also your doctor has to see so many patients now to make money, right? So if you get a concierge, they'll spend more time with you. But by and large, it's sort of like a health fair. If you go to a health fair, most everyone at a health fair is healthy. They're all healthy. They're at the health fair because they're healthy. But there's always one person that's not healthy at a health fair. So whenever I talk at them, I actually play Where's Waldo, right? Where's the one unhealthy person at this health fair? And the last one I went to, I found a man that had had his aneurysm fixed, but his surgeon had died 3 years ago, and he had the new way of doing it with a stent, and you need to be scanned every year, and he hadn't been scanned since his surgeon died. And I said, found my guy, and it turned out he had a leak and needed to have intervention. So health fairs actually attract that. Concierge are usually healthy people that do that. So frankly, it gives you attention, but I'm not sure it makes you healthier.
Julie, I do know a couple of doctors who smoke and are overweight.
Yes.
Seriously. I mean,
a lot of them trained me. I had many that had to leave the OR to go have a cigarette. We've seen it.
But it's changing and improving.
It's changing. It's hardly. Both my parents smoked, and they both had diseases because of smoking, and aneurysm and vascular. In 1983 in LA, everything went non-smoking. My dad didn't believe me. He thought I was lying, that of course there's got to be a restaurant that's going to be smoking. But in 1983, you couldn't smoke in any restaurant in Los Angeles, and people thought everyone would go out of business. Now look what has happened years, and when I moved to Baltimore, they were still smoking in restaurants in 2003. So part of it is the culture change and how we go forward, and what we know and what's acceptable. Who would know that all these diseases came from smoking, not only lung cancer, but vascular disease and other things. So it actually is something we didn't know, but now we do.
On this campus, we are focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. There's a growth mindset in our institutional DNA.
Hi, I'm Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and I'm proud to be High Point University's Innovator in Residence.
Hi, I'm Byron Pitts, High Point University's Journalist in Residence. Welcome to HPU.
I'm Mark Randolph, and I'm proud to be the entrepreneur in residence at the premier life skills university, High Point University.
We have a few moments left. Let's speak about the Wake Forest Innovation Quarter.
Yeah.
It has gotten tremendous attention. We've had a couple of your leading personalities there on this campus, and like Dr. Tony Atalla, who's spoken on campus several times. Big fan of High Point University, by the way, and neither his daughter nor his son is going with someone who graduated from High Point University. So
and his son
we
is
attract
going to
people
Wake
in all
Forest.
kinds of ways.
His son's going to Wake Forest.
But tell us about the Wake Forest Innovation Quarter. What is going on? What are your goals for the future? What have been some of your accomplishments? And why is that important to all of us in North Carolina and beyond?
Yeah, well, this was not my idea, and one of the reasons I came, because I had heard about the Innovation Quarter. I've known Dr. Atalla for a long time because he's a surgeon as well, and his regenerative cures of making organs and growing cells are amazing. Again, here's an amazing thing we can do. It will be expensive and amazing, but we can't do it for everyone. So we want you to stay healthy. But if you did need these, we're going to have organs. He can make parts of kidneys now. It's just amazing. We also have other companies down there that are innovating with devices and medications and other things so that we actually could intervene or treat you in ways that are just new and different, and perhaps ahead of time. Maybe getting a scanner that can detect a cancer that's smaller than it used to be, or knowing that you're at risk for cancer because we've looked at your genetic profile so we can image you and study you in a different way. So it's sort of an intersection of science and business. There's many businesses down there. We're growing different businesses. Every Thursday night down there is a venture cafe where a bunch of innovators come together, and you're welcome to come to it. It's at the Bailey Power Plant, which just opened, where all these people come with their new ideas of business and how they're going to make things work, some health, some business, and it's sort of that intersection. We also have Wake Forest University undergrads down there, engineering students now, and it's made such a big difference to have those students down there along with the medical students, the PA students, the nurse anesthetist students.
How does that work? You bus them back and forth?
Yeah, they have a shuttle that goes back and forth, and even to the hospital as well, to all just a few miles to do it. But they've really energized us down there, and adding more students down there I think would be even better. So we have about 60 more acres to develop down there. As you know, the medical school building is made out of one of the old tobacco buildings, and it's just amazing. If you haven't been in there, you need to walk in because your brain gets bigger. It's just beautiful. They used to dump the tobacco in, and now we've got these skylights. And many of my board members remember rolling cigarettes as their summer job down in those, and here we now have a very vibrant medical system.
So, you know, at High Point University, as you well know, we have a School of Health Sciences, which partners with and you cooperate with us in this way, physician's assistant, physical therapy, and other programs as well. We also have School of Pharmacy at High Point University, the only one in the triad. And we are both investing significant resources, human and fiscal resources, and we are very anticipatory in terms of what these men and women can go on to do to help in the medical field across America and the world. We just graduated PA class, for example. 70% of them are going to be in North Carolina serving. 46% of them are going to be serving in the triad, where we have great needs for such. What would you, if you're speaking to them, these medical professionals that we are graduating at High Point University, with great faculty, great facilities, you know what we're doing at High Point. What would you be saying to them about the future of medicine? How might we have hope that the future of medicine is going to be good for all of us, given AI, given robotics, given all of these new methodologies that we're all becoming familiar with?
Yeah. I think we're so excited to partner even more with your professional schools and your undergrad students, because that's what makes us learn so much and why I come to work every day, these young, energetic, smart people. And I just went to a whole symposium on artificial intelligence and these, and I think they called it augmented intelligence, so you don't feel like it's artificial, but these these partners that we can have that are really robotic partners that will sit there and say, make sure you remember to check that, or here's the last 3 articles on here, I've read it for you, here's the summary, Julie, you don't have to read it. These are these, and I picture them as R2-D2s, but I'm told that they're going to be on my watch, you know, that they can actually tell me all those things so that I can keep up, and then as I interview you, they actually transcribe the notes so I don't have to type it. I mean, it's exciting. I think for your students, it's really going to be point of touch. Where we're going to impact you to make you healthier is not when I meet you in the emergency room or when you need an operation. It really is your day-to-day. It's your children, teaching your children to be healthier, to brush their teeth and go exercise, to make sure that your teenagers and young adults take good care of themselves, to make sure that you have a healthy lifestyle as we go forward. And that's where PAs, nurse practitioners, all sorts of point of care people can make a huge difference in education. We have a free clinic for our students, and mostly what they do is sit and talk to people about healthy lifestyle. And that in the past, when I talked to veterans, which we had talked about, they really thought that if I did a great big operation on them, that I really loved them, and that's the gold standard of care. And not so much. I mean, that's probably my failure in not keeping you healthy. So if we can reframe it, that my success is that I'll never need to operate on you, and I never need you in the hospital, that's success versus giving you something big and robotic and that to make it happen. But I do think these new cognitive partners that are going to be with us, I saw them use one for in England, where the patient gets on and the cognitive partner, which is a robot, asks all these questions, comes up with the diagnosis, flips the patient to a doctor. Meanwhile, no one's seen or touched anybody yet, but they made the diagnosis and treated her all online with total satisfaction, because no one had to travel, no one had to pay much for that, because that's just minutes of time, virtually, so I don't have to have a building or air conditioning. So I think all of us need to get in the mood that, yes, I could talk to a cognitive partner about my disease. You know, it's not a human, maybe smarter than a human, but can actually direct you to the right thing. So we have to have an open mind about what healthcare could be in the future, which may not be your doctor every time, but a cognitive partner. I do remember my dad, when he went to see a nurse practitioner at the VA, he goes, you know, I didn't see a doctor today. And I said, well, how was she? She was better than the doctor, but she wasn't a doctor. And I said, I think I'd go back to her.
Yes. So good to be with us today on the campus of High Point University to share about your personal life, about your own professional achievements, about the way you plant seeds of greatness in the hearts, minds, and souls of your students and your colleagues. You've inspired us with your sense of resilience. You've certainly impressed us with your high intellect. But mostly what I admire about you is your uncanny ability to build bridges of understanding with people. You have the gift from the heavens of working with people in a way that makes them want to work with you more. Put me down as one of your fans, Julie. And we're so glad, thank you, and we're so glad to have you in the triad. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Julie Freischlag.